The NEET 2083 question from the friction. I'm taking up only this question to tell you how easily some of the questions in NEET are given. Otherwise, there is nothing to solve, it's just a basic concept. I'll just tell you what is this question is. Which of the following statements are incorrect? The first statement, frictional force opposes the relative motion. So, statement A says, whenever there is a body, if we apply a force, body tend to move in forward direction and frictional force acts in opposite direction. So frictional force opposes relative motion is a right statement. That's the very definition of the friction itself. Next, B. Limiting frictional force. So what is the meaning of the limiting frictional force is, frictional force is directly proportional to normal reaction. In this case, say for example, weight is mg. Normal reaction is also mg itself, right? So frictional force equal to mu into normal reaction, where mu is called coefficient of friction. When the what is maximum static frictional force is Fs maximum, which is also called limiting friction. Is, I'll just tell you with an example. Say for example, you are having a body of mass 20 kilogram and frictional applied force is like this. Frictional forces, assume that mu is 0.3. Frictional force is mu into normal reaction. Mu into mg. Mu is 0.3. M is 20. G is 10. So this is 3 into 20. That's nothing but 60 Newton. So this is maximum frictional force developed, which is called limiting friction. So if you apply a force of, say for example, here applied force is 10 Newton. Applied force. What happens to frictional force? Let me talk. Applied force is 10 Newton, then the frictional force self-adjusts itself. It won't become 60 Newton, but it becomes 10 Newton. Both of them cancels and the body remains in the state of rest. When the applied force is 50 Newton, frictional force also becomes 50 Newton. When the applied force is 60 Newton, frictional force becomes 60 Newton. When the applied force is 61 Newton, frictional force remains at 60 Newton itself. That is because it's a maximum frictional force or a limiting frictional force. So what happens is, within the limiting friction, friction self-adjusts itself to applied force. That's the very nature of the static frictional force. But in spite of all that, frictional force is directly proportional to normal reaction is also a right statement. Next. C. What is that C tells you is rolling friction is, of course, is less than that of the sliding friction. It's a kinetic friction, right? Because while you are rolling, body will be moving like this. In the case of the rolling, the area of contact is less. As the area of contact is less, it's automatically friction developed is also less. That's why we make all the wheels rolling but not sliding. So statement C is then coefficient of sliding friction, the last one. Coefficient of sliding friction has a dimensions of length. This is wrong actually. Frictional force, any frictional force is directly proportional to normal reaction. So frictional force equal to mu into normal reaction. So coefficient of friction is frictional force by normal reaction. This is also a force. This is also a force. So both of them cancels. Mu is a constant that don't have any dimensions. Don't have any dimensions. So having a dimensions of length, coefficient of friction is the wrong statement. All other statements are correct. And hence option D is correct because we want a incorrect statement. That's how we need to understand that problem. Thank you for watching.